Nootropics are drugs that are purported to make you smarter. Caffeine is often given as an example of a nootropic because it's been shown to increase alertness and attentional performance. However, as far as most supplements that are explicitly advertised as nootropics go, the evidence in their support is weak, and you'd likely be better off saving your money. At least that's roughly what a 2022 review on nootropics argued, when it concluded that because of the incomplete clinical evidence on their effectiveness, safety, and social consequences in the case of long-term use, especially with synthetic variants of these drugs, they cannot be recommended to healthy individuals who do not suffer from any cognitive dysfunction. With this in mind, the recent video that Mike Israetel posted, "Top Nootropics for Boosting Your Brain Power. Must Try," caught my eye. Despite the dearth of evidence supporting most nootropics, Mike is suggesting that there are some that you must try. In the thumbnail, that they're a way to hack your brain. Let's see if he can convince us.
What's in your top 3 to 5 brain health stack? Got CBD. What else are you willing to say is at least worth a try for some people in this case?
Yeah, I'll probably have maybe a couple more than that. But
oh, fucking hey, shit.
Yeah.
Folks, I am here with Jake Benson. He is a super expert on all things cognitive enhancement, nootropics, and brain health, and we are going to be asking.
Wait, how did he introduce him?
He is a super expert on all things cognitive enhancement, nootropics, and brain health.
A super expert. That's setting the bar high. Let's see if the super expert can deliver.
And we are going to be asking him about which supplements you can use in order to boost your brain ability generally. We'll get into details in a second. Let's get to it. THC and CBD.
Yes, the cannabinoids THC and CBD, drugs that have been shown to cause cognitive decline. I can see that we're off to a great start to a video about smart drugs.
Are they doing to rest and relaxation?
Rest and relaxation? Hang on, I thought this video was about smart drugs.
What caffeine does to your sympathetic system, which is like a plunger-mediated overdrive that's really just not really great sustainable for long term. Are they masking true relaxation? Or are they opening up your brain activity and facilitating real, actual relaxation that's helping you do all those good things under the hood?
Mike's basically asking, are THC and CBD to the parasympathetic nervous system what caffeine is to the sympathetic nervous system? I don't know what he means when he asks if these drugs open up your brain activity. That sounds a bit mystical, but let's see how Jake replies anyway.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Let's start with CBD. So CBD itself, I think, is probably one of the greatest, at least my top 5 like supplements that you should use for neuronal health. The things that it's been shown to do are pretty incredible.
Citation needed.
Like it's actually going to lower the amount of glutamate that's released, which is going to lower the total amount of calcium ions that are being flooded from neuron to neuron. And when that happens, we're going to have less oxidative stress.
Citation needed.
Yada yada. I think CBD is probably one of the best things that we can use as far as like protecting or pushing ourselves into a true relaxation point.
What's this about a true relaxation point? I thought this video was supposed to be about smart drugs.
I have to ask this question. This is personally pertinent to me, and maybe many other people watching. The dosing range for CBD, if you look up the literature, is a giant fucking question mark.
Yeah.
The studies are all over the place. Is there a CBD-mediated toxicity that we have to approximately be concerned with? Or
Yes.
is it like, if you feel a calm and relaxing effect, or sorry, if you don't at a lower dose, is it okay to up the dose a bit to see when you feel it? Because obviously there's huge inter-individual differences between this sort of thing.
No, yeah, that's a really good question. My guideline would be like, for the normal person, somewhere around like the 10 to probably 30 mgs is probably going to be like a pretty good place to start. And then there are the extreme situations where you're
Mike Israetel correctly identifies himself as an extreme situation.
going to have people, well, the people with like, you got to think, the people with like higher IQs, that's just a big neurological capacity.
So back to normal.
There's so much more damage that's occurred, and there's so many more neurons to shut down. That there are times where a triple digit CBD dose is probably acceptable during that time.
Come again? There's more neuronal shutdown in higher IQ individuals, which means they might want to take more CBD. Well, anyway, we can safely dismiss Jake's claim here since he didn't give any evidence to support it.
It's kind of like the same thing though with like maybe like a refeed, right? It's like, well, how much is a refeed or a cheat or whatever I'm doing, you know? It's like, depends. How big are you? How much damage can you?
Look at Mike just nodding along, never challenging any of what Jake says. I do hope that Mike's expressions of agreement throughout this interview didn't convince anyone in Mike's audience that anything Jake says is profound. But if the reception in the comments is anything to go by, then it looks as if nobody's buying it.
How much thyroid hormone are you on?
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. You can be a lot if you wanted to.
Sure.
But yeah, it just really depends. As far as the toxicity, I'm sure there's some level of
everything
toxicity.
is an LD50, right?
Yeah,
sure.
It's a bit sloppy to use scientific jargon like LD50 without explaining it to a lay audience. I guess this would be forgivable if a pop-up explanation were given, like what was done earlier with sympathetic nervous system, but I guess the editor got lazy or something.
I would say for the most part, like I probably wouldn't go above 100 milligrams consistently
per day.
Yeah, like if you're doing that here and there on your stressful days, where it's like, hey, I had a really big day, and whatever, like doing 100 mgs here and there is just fine.
You heard it here first on the RP YouTube channel. If you feel stressed, then just take more drugs.
It's hard for me to believe that there's going to be some kind of toxic level to that.
Is this assertion of Jake's based on any scientific evidence, or is it just an argument from personal incredulity? Because it kind of sounds as if it's the latter.
I just don't see what that would really be.
And there's no literature to support an acute or even chronic toxicity with CBD administration.
Yeah.
That's actually just not true. A number of preclinical and clinical studies have reported adverse effects and toxicity following CBD intake. Mike is just talking out of his ass and peddling falsehoods, and this is deeply irresponsible of him.
There's enough hippies out there that have been on this shit for fucking years. They're still
Totally
alive.
fine. So.
Yeah, no reports of sudden death.
Oh, okay. I guess that's Mike's gauge for whether or not a drug is safe. Can it cause sudden death? Maybe this is why he megadoses anabolic androgenic steroids despite the manifest risks.
And then what do you think? So in your view, CBD really does have those truly supportive abilities. Mm-hmm. What about THC?
I would put that more in this neutral category where I don't think it's making it worse, but I don't think there's really much proof for me to feel like it's actually making things better. I think that's really coming from the CBD itself.
Okay.
I think the argument that you could make with THC is like, as far as relaxation is in conjunction with CBD and it's like, I can't even remember what I just said a sentence ago.
I thought they were supposed to be talking about smart drugs.
So it kind of helps you not think so much,
Jeez, right? Okay, so what if, during the high of THC, mm-hmm. obviously there's going to be some pretty decent cognitive activity. It's mostly nonsensical, but nonetheless it's occurring.
Mostly nonsensical cognitive activity isn't a great sell for a so-called smart drug. I get that they're talking about THC here, which they don't necessarily endorse, but all the same, I'm 5 minutes in and I'm still waiting for them to talk about smart drugs.
During the calm down or the stoned part, I personally experience a huge perceptive relaxing ability. Like I'm on the couch like, oh, and it's just like, it's so relaxing. Is that kind of force-driven relaxation fake? Or in the sense of it's not really helping the rest of the process? Or is it because I'm experiencing phenomenologically deep relaxation during that time? Is that actually helping me restore and recover?
Here Mike goes again, pushing the conversation in the direction of relaxation. Talk about smart drugs already. That's why people clicked on this.
You know what I mean? Like, It's a fucking vexing question.
No, it really is. I think there's a couple drugs that kind of fall into this category that you could almost like put in here. THC, it's all going to be this peripheral output on your own perception.
Peripheral output on your own perception. Ooh la la. I love using words.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's like, for you, that is what you perceive as being relaxing, or someone that actually might be a little bit like exciting, and some people actually really like THC and like to, go do like social events, and it gives them just a little like,
I can do anything on THC. I'm just bad at everything.
Yeah, same here.
Which when I'm on THC is funny.
Yeah, no, it can't. Like I've seen one of the smartest humans I've ever met is pretty much a pothead, and he can function really well all the time. Right? Yeah.
If the smartest person you know is a pothead, then that speaks less to how smart your friend is and more to the quality of the company you keep. I'm just joking. But in any case, I hope Jake isn't confusing correlation with causation. because smart people are often smart in spite of and not because of what they do. The smartest person I know could eat raw chicken for all I care, but I'd be a fool to assume that doing so myself would make me any smarter.
And it's awesome. It's just like this peripheral output of like, this is how I perceive this thing to be. And there's like, not to get on another random tangent, but it just reminded me of opiates and how opiates work too, because it actually kind of functions similarly, because we'll see people who take opiates and they actually get really excited, you know.
Citation needed.
And they're like up and they're going and they're like, wow, I feel so creative. And there's other people who are like, wow, I am in the couch, I'm going to sleep, right? And the funny thing is, like with opiates, is they have this really funny GABA glutamate. And it's pretty trippy how it works, but basically, like what can happen is you have a GABA receptor and you have GABA. Let's say like one GABA comes and attaches itself to the GABA receptor. And we'll say in this scenario, nothing happens other than this actually will go on and change the shape of a glutamate receptor, because they go hand in hand. And it will actually allow this glutamate receptor to now temporarily accept more glutamate.
Citation
Is
needed.
that like allosteric modification?
Okay. Yep. And now it's able to just like accept so much. And now we get this massive glutamate rush. And that's actually, again, pars reticulata is like, hey, normally we're not okay with like this much glutamate, but like, we'll allow it. Yeah, and now you're like, woo, and now you got like all this glutamate in there, and you're like, wow, I feel really good. And like all of a sudden you're texting people like, I love you, dude, like, whatever, and like all this.
I do experience that sort of effect. I don't know if it's the same mechanism, but I do experience that in the first like 3 or 4 hours of edibles.
Still waiting for them to talk about smart drugs.
With THC.
Yeah,
and then
so
later
that's what I was
the...
going to come back to, is those can act very similarly.
Interesting.
Where we have this.
So I'm a heroin addict is what you're trying to say.
Yes. Yep. Heroin's just fine. And just take specific heroin and just, get on like, Vicodin or something, and that's fine.
That pairing is great. 0 chance of death.
Indeed. I wonder how it pairs with Mike's anabolic cocktail consisting of testosterone, anavar, human growth hormone, insulin, and a number of other ancillaries.
Yeah, and there's like, anyway, no, I'll stop there.
PC cut off. Do not take this as advice, please.
Don't worry, we won't.
Half of this is sarcasm, possibly more.
Like, I think it's satirical, but I don't know. Anyway, yeah. But yeah, so anyway, that can happen. We get this big glutamate rush, and maybe you feel that, with, and it all works on these GABA. It's really funny because now we kind of have this like, duality of like what these drugs can do, and they're all based on our what we perceive. So like, some people will like get into these weird philosophical things where like, well, I see that color is like blue, I wonder if that's the same blue you see. It's like, that's actually how we're seeing drugs and very specific neurological activities. Some of us see this thing as exciting, while somebody will see it as, wow, I'm really tired.
And context is important too. Like if I'm on THC, I'm not going to tell any specific stories, but if I'm on large doses of THC in like a customs line through the airport, not exactly the same experience as like me watching movies on the couch with my wife.
And light actually plays a big one on that too.
Ooh, details.
Yeah. So light. So like, like everyone gets into this debate of like sativa versus indica, like in the couch or
still waiting.
In the couch. That's how I remember it.
They're no different. The only thing that's like really different about it is like we tend to take indica when the light's down, when the sun's down and we have moonlight, and now we're getting, GABAergic activity, and now we're starting to facilitate this and perceive the same drug in a different way versus, hey, I have already epinephrine in my blood, and now I'm going to take THC and we'll call it sativa, and now it's exciting.
Okay. It's THC. It's interesting because there's that situation, not to get too off topic.
I didn't even know they were on topic in the first place.
I'll rein it back in shortly. Mushrooms. If you take mushrooms during the day,
here we go.
Many people have quite positive experience. If you have your shit together and you're an experienced user, you take mushrooms at night, it's fucking amazing. But if not, a little couple demons might come out, because it's like the darkness. Because humans are a diurnal species primarily, darkness tends to bring in some more fear-based responses to external stimuli, which you can't really readily process when you're high off your fucking ass. So if you look into a dark room when you're on mushrooms, you're like, oh shit.
They've been talking for over 10 minutes now, and still no mention of anything other than taking recreational drugs for relaxation.
Versus if it's light, you're like, oh, there's a happy fairy in there that is happy.
Well, and a lot of that actually has the way that it changes our sensory feedback.
Sure.
So with psilocybin and I guess you could probably even kind of make the argument for like LSD or even in DMT and whatever, it's going to inhibit so much of our vision. So like LSD actually, like, not to go on another tangent, but probably one of the coolest, do I want to say this? Yeah, I'll say it, whatever.
We can always edit everything out.
You can? It doesn't show.
One of the coolest endurance drugs probably ever. The best PED. Because one, it's like, cool. So it's like, imagine somebody running a marathon or something, right? Mm-hmm. What's the worst thing that can happen? It's like, cool, I'm going to have hypervigilant, like focal vision. They start staring something down. And now we kind of tighten up. The stride gets a little bit shorter. That we're contracting a little bit more than we should. Now we're hypoxic for no reason. Mm-hmm. Now marathon's over. Like performance is gone.
So now this video is about sports performance. Okay. I mean, I guess that befits RP's YouTube channel, but certainly not the subject matter of this video. I know Jake prefaced it with, I don't want to go on another random tangent, but I think we've had enough random tangents. It's a shame that they couldn't have been edited out. Anyway, as far as what Jake's saying goes, it's an interesting hypothesis, I'll grant, that LSD is this marvelous endurance drug, but I couldn't find anything by way of scientific evidence. I'll grant that absence of evidence isn't the same thing as evidence of absence, but I think until we have something firmer, then we should treat Jake's hypothesis as just that, a hypothesis. It's not hard evidence to go on, and it shouldn't be presented as such. But Jake asserts, without evidence and without qualification, and I quote, that LSD is one of the coolest endurance drugs probably ever. It's a bit sloppy to disseminate such a claim on the RP YouTube channel. And bear in mind, I don't blame Jake for this, I actually blame Mike. He was, after all, the one who conceived of this video and presumably authorized the silly title and thumbnail. And introduced Jake as a super expert when, did Jake ask to be called that? I don't imagine so.
Now you throw in something...
too much sympathetic drive. Marathon's about a huge balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic. Because
absolutely.
You go too hard early. That's the definition of how to fuck up a marathon.
You're literally done.
You're not sprinting.
Yep, yeah. Exactly. And so you throw in a little bit of LSD. It's like, cool, I'm actually going to inhibit my focal vision. So now I'm actually kind of pushing out on peripheral vision a little bit, a little better efferent afferent signaling. And we have this super cool thing where it actually upregulates protein kinase C, which is actually going to get us fatty acids beta oxidized way cheaper.
Dude, hell yeah, I'm taking LSD for a fat loss drug.
They've talked about relaxation, they've talked about sports performance, and now they're talking about body recompositioning, and still no mention of smart drugs.
Honestly, like if you were able to isolate the component that upregulates that protein kinase C, you would have the ultimate like metabolic like fat loss drug ever.
Dude, that's sweet.
It's pretty cool.
Fuck isolating it. I'd be fucking high on acid all day long. I'm like, I go to lift weights, but I've just been holding a dumbbell for 2 hours looking at it. Like, Mike, what are you doing with it? I'm like,
I did it.
Who's Mike? All right. So, anyway. Okay, reining it back because you and I could do this all fucking day. We'll skip. Okay, so we took care of relaxation. So
finally,
to get this 1 grain out really quick.
Never mind. Spoke too soon.
CBD definitely truly restorative. THC, I'll take a stab at this. If you experience it emotionally, contextually, as a relaxing restorative experience, then it does help. If you experience THC as a fight for your life panic attack for 8 hours because somebody gave you double dose edibles by accident, you do not experience restorative
I feel like that feels pretty fair. I feel like we could probably say low dose, probably helpful.
So THC went from neutral to probably helpful, at least in low doses.
Moderate, high dose, probably not.
Sure. The hell, my fucking high dose is the only thing you do. In any case, all right. So that brings me to my next question. Mm-hmm. We have a situation where we may be able to supplement with some things.
Emphasis on may.
That help us shepherd along this balance between production and restoration. You already said CBD is in your top list. What other, dare I call them, nootropic is technically something that enhances your intelligence, but I like to use the term a little bit more broadly to say something that enhances neuronal health generally and obviously can potentiate more intelligence in some cases.
So far, you might be confused about why a video that's ostensibly about smart drugs is only talking about recreational relaxation drugs. I certainly was. Well, 13 minutes deep into this video, we get our answer. It's this. Mike Israetel has a different definition of nootropics to most. So different, in fact, that he classifies some cannabinoids as nootropics. If only he gave his non-standard definition at the beginning of the video. That way, his audience wouldn't have had to sit through 13 minutes of nonsense before realizing that the video is a waste of their time.
So forget the term nootropic.
Oh, forget it. Forget nootropics. Forget why you clicked on this video. Too bad for Mike, his audience isn't taking as much THC as he might think, and so they can remember why they clicked on this video. It wasn't to be told 13 minutes deep into a video that purports to be about nootropics that it actually isn't about nootropics.
What's in your top 3 to 5 brain health stack? You got CBD. What else are you willing to say is at least worth a try for some people in this case?
Yeah, I'll probably have maybe a couple more than that. But
oh fucking hey shit.
Yeah.
Hit me.
It depends. So if it depends, because we can look at this in so many different ways, because you can really make an argument that like if you work on your hemodynamics, that's going to end up being very neuroprotective, right? Like there's so many different ways to kind of attack this that but let's just kind of keep them simple, not to go too crazy.
Sure.
So we'll keep them to like single components, single
Assuming
compounds.
a healthy athletic person who is insulin sensitive, has good hemodynamics, and isn't in otherwise some kind of greatly stressful situation.
Cool.
But like is the kind of person that wants to fucking
just kind of general.
Yeah, and they got a career, they got training, they got some shit, they got fucking kids yelling and shit, and they get good sleep, but they just want some kind of enhancer to make this whole thing work better.
Yeah. Okay, so if you want to improve cognition, or you want to improve this ability to kind of like reorganize your brain, or executive function or whatever, I think it's really hard to beat Noopept.
Citation needed.
The Russians invented it, so I think it's terrible.
It's pretty shitty. But
it's
like,
awful.
If it was invented by America, it would probably
Angels.
be great.
It would be patriotic.
It'd be super.
You would, when taking it, feel like a bald eagle taking flight.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. The funny thing, like kind of just thinking about it, is a lot of these things that are probably some of my favorite for, we'll call it like brain health, are also like some of the hardest to get and almost illegal sometimes, which is really funny.
Almost illegal. What a fun term.
Yeah, almost illegal.
For
like
good
CBD,
reasons, I'm sure.
No, they were doing so well, and now they're talking about CBD again.
Like CBD
Yes.
is like, is it legal?
Newly sort of legal in some
It's
places.
like if it's hemp, yes. If it's not, then no. It's like that makes no sense.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so like, CBD is going to be up there again for what it does, like the glutamate with, glutamate and calcium ions and all that.
Citation needed.
Noopept is going to be up there. It's fantastic it's going to upregulate a whole bunch of BDNF, so that cooling part of the process.
No pop-up for BDNF, I see. Pick it up, RP editor.
Your ability to learn, recall. It's going to improve upregulate synaptogenesis, neurogenesis.
Citation
I
needed.
call it very colloquially, very stupidly, the growth hormone of the brain. Is that a shit analogy, or is there something to that? And I don't mean literally growth hormone. Like, to me, growth hormone is something you take fucking gear, tren and shit for that.
Speak for yourself, Mike. I don't take Tren for that grrr or whatever. I think most people in your audience don't either.
You take growth for that healing effect overnight.
Okay.
BDNF, upregulating drugs like Noopept, to me, it's like higher or whatever effective doses of Noopept are working on that. I mean, it's a neurotrophic factor. It supports growth and restoration and healing.
I can see,
Is there something to that?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah,
Because anyway, immediately what you thought was like, these are two different compounds, you fucking moron, and they work synergistically, you fucking idiot.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I like it. No, I think that's awesome. Actually, speaking of, I'd probably say growth hormone is you could probably make a pretty good argument for growth hormone as far as neuronal health.
Sure. Children and young adults who produce higher levels of growth hormone have no problem with neural restoration and, in fact, neural expansion. But older individuals, especially very old, that have very, I was going to say decrepit amounts of growth hormone. That's kind of insulting. Very degraded amounts of or growth hormone production. They're the ones that have a lot of problem with the neural regeneration.
Which makes a lot of sense, right? It's like they probably still produce these growth factors, but it's like sending out a signal and no one's replying.
Sure.
Right? So it's like, I think growth hormones, I put my parents on growth hormone. Like,
Hell yeah.
Growth hormone's awesome.
My mom's on 18 units, bro.
Oh, hell yeah.
Fucking
She's
26-inch quads. She's pissed, too. She's on a lot of Tren.
Oh, okay.
She just likes
That
it.
makes sense.
I tell her not to take it. She's
Just
like, shut up.
It just makes me happy.
She has shit, weird shit like, I can quit anytime. She sounds like that.
Yeah, I act better on trend.
Oh, I've heard some people say that before.
I've heard it too much. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't hurt me.
Person who is shaking at the dumbbell rack. You're like, yes.
Your skin is very red. Okay.
Slowly walk away from you.
I love how in the ensuing seconds, if you just look at Mike's facial expressions, it almost looks as if he's contemplating his life choices. Like, maybe I shouldn't take Tren. What if I'm that guy, shaking at the dumbbell rack? Oh well, gotta keep blasting.
It's awesome. I think that could. I think you could make a really good argument for like glutathione too, like injectable glutathione.
Okay.
Because it's going to be one of the best for removing that oxidative stress. I've heard a pretty good argument actually for, and it's becoming more popular now, is injectable carnitine, because it's also going to kind of what we'll call close that glycolytic window, right?
Mm-hmm.
No citations given. I guess when you're a super expert, you can just say things without evidence, and people are expected to believe you. To be fair to Jake, I don't think this whole disaster is his fault as much as it is Mike's. After all, Mike's the one who misled his audience by introducing Jake as a super expert and presumably also authorized the clickbait video title and thumbnail. For all Jake knew, this video was going to be titled "Two Roided Up Numbnuts Talk About Getting High," because the video is just that. And if it had been presented as such, i.e. honestly, then nobody would have had a problem with it. Really, it'd be quite unfair to blame Jake for this video's poor quality when Mike's the one who set up the whole thing.
I think another one I would throw in there is magnesium. And if I had to pick a form of it, because there's like, I think probably 19,000 forms of magnesium by this point, I'd probably say magnesium glycinate, because now we kind of have this dual action. Magnesium kind of being this antagonist of calcium, obviously, like, you know, it's going to kind of make a neuron a little less likely to fire. Kind of this, it's a huge component of the GABAergic system. It's going to keep the basically where glutamate wants to receive, it's going to start inhibiting that.
Citation needed.
Then you have glycine. The glycine part of the magnesium glycinate is actually something that helps open up those chloride ion channels, which is, you know, again, the opposite of calcium, has a very sedating effect. It's actually a huge part of what kind of cools us off is glycine. Really, really awesome. So if you're trying to, like, you know, basically stop wild thoughts and also cool off, magnesium glycinate, pretty hard to beat, pretty awesome. You could probably make an argument for magnesium threonate because it's more accepted, breaks the brain blood barrier a lot easier, so it's going to be very specific.
I'm writing that down.
Given that I'm not a super expert like Jake, I'm not in a position to comment on the proposed mechanisms of action for the various drugs he's talking about. But there's someone in the comments section who goes by the chaotic neuron who might be able to. And he or she sounds a little bit more like a super expert than Jake. The chaotic neuron writes, "WTF is this, Dr. Mike? Did you not fact-check this dude before having him spew misinformation for 25 minutes on your channel? 90% of what this guy says, mostly the stuff that pertains to mechanisms of things and interpretation of outcomes of acting on those mechanisms, is just plain wrong. It's close enough to correct to sound fine, but it's a very wrong misinterpretation of what our current models of those things are. Most of the paradoxical effects you get from opiates come from the balance in the limbic circuitry, not single synapse, or even single neuron effects. Everything he says implies a direct compound to receptor to full brain/body effect relationship, which is a common mistake that uneducated, and even very educated people make. Source: I'm a neuroscientist. In brackets, I can provide actual sources upon request on specific queries if needed, and then the chaotic neuron proceeds to do just that. This is also the most upvoted comment on the video, with 1.5 thousand likes.
For my own personal notes.
And I'm probably missing something. Those would probably be like, I think that's probably 6 or 7.
Okay.
Those would probably be my go-to. There's a lot of things you can make some arguments for, especially if you put some specific things to go together. But if you're just naming off like single compounds,
Sure.
I think that's what I would say.
Sure.
Use these things as like aids to kind of guide the ship, and your behavior is much more important than these supplements themselves. So
Okay.
if you think you can just go take like, you know, I'm just gonna go take some KSM, some magnesium, some CBD, and I'm just gonna like sit on my phone until I get tired. It's like your behavior is more important than that. You know, sleep hygiene is gonna be way more important than you taking the right supplements. Like,
while I appreciate what Jake's saying here, it's not really consistent with the message in the title and thumbnail of the video that these supplements are a way that you can hack your brain, that they're a must-try. Mike has some answering to do when it comes to that, since presumably he authorized the title and thumbnail of the video.
Go
Sleep
outside.
hygiene means pushing in 18 units of growth in one shot.
That's
right?
what we're getting back at.
Yes,
Yeah, exactly.
got it.
It's like, hey, it's like I'm going to take a little bit of ashwagandha or a little bit of magnesium, whatever we just named, whatever you decide to do, and now I'm going to go sit outside. I'm going to go stare at the moon. I'm going to go bring a little bit of metabolism to these other parts of my brain. I'm going to work on my breathing for like 3 to 5 minutes. And I'm going to kind of do this on my own and let these supplements kind of guide where I'm already going. I'm just getting assistance. It's like the same thing as like, cool, I'm taking testosterone. I don't got to lift weights. Like, I'm just going to do it. It's like, it's a supplement that's going to aid something. It's going to upregulate all these protein, whatever. You still have, your behavior is still way more important than the supplement.
Sure. So if you're taking gear, you should be paying extra attention to moderate levels of supplementation for these sort of neurotrophic compounds. And you should also be paying special attention to restorative periods, relaxation, recovery, and a lot of sleep.
The truth comes out. Mike cares about these drugs because he wants to mitigate the side effects from megadosing anabolic androgenic steroids. That's why in a video that's ostensibly talking about smart drugs, they're talking about recreational relaxation drugs. It's to treat roid rage.
Hygiene.
Absolutely.
Because you're pushing the system hard.
Yeah.
You got to rest the system hard.
Yeah. It's like, maybe even like think about earning it. It's like, I don't earn the supplement until I can do it, right? The same way it's like, well, I'm not going to put my client on X amount of AAS or whatever because they can't even eat right.
If they train twice a week.
Yeah, and they sleep for it. It's like, It doesn't make any sense. Like, hey, behavior first, then add these things.
Yes. In. My analogy for that whole A to B thing in my head, the way I make sense of it is if you have a Honda Civic, you just never drive it any faster than 70 miles an hour. The amount of maintenance work it's going to take is like once a year, you take it in, the mechanic goes, these things never break, get out of here.
Yeah.
But if you have a top fuel dragster, you push it at 350 miles an hour.
You better bring that thing in all the time.
I mean, it's like for every minute you race it, it's 10 hours of maintenance.
Yeah.
So
yeah, don't treat your body like this.
So I think people sometimes maybe forget that. And especially when you're trying to be good at athletics, trying to be good at your job, maybe you're on gear, maybe you're not. You're always trying to push. And there's kind of this like pseudo Spartan-esque attitude in our world of like, fuck, gotta push it, brother. And you're like, what about sleep and recovery and restoration? Like,
I slept 2 hours. Like,
that's
I'm
right.
Better than you.
That's the GAY word we're not allowed to say anymore. You know what I mean? Like, there you go. You're canceled. You're homophobe. Like that's kind of the notion. That's wrong.
Yeah.
Right? The thought that you shouldn't take care of your body is wrong, said the one roider to the other.
Yep. Yeah. It's like, it's exactly what it is. It's like, I really like that analogy you just used too, because, it's like, everybody wants to have a Lamborghini or like a McLaren or whatever.
I have 80
like,
Lamborghinis.
Oh.
Can someone in the comments explain why Mike often makes these jokes, if they can even be called that, where he just exaggerates how much money he has? Like, I have a castle, I have 80 Lamborghinis, I have butlers, you'll hear him blurt out.
It's really cool.
My butlers attend to them, so I don't do the maintenance.
Oh,
Nor
wow.
do I drive
okay, there
them.
you go. So that's the analogy.
You need butlers.
Butlers. If you don't have a butler, what are you doing? But that's it. It's like before, it's like everyone wants to have like, wants to be like the next XYZ or it's like, but do you even know how to manage that? Do you have the capacity to manage it? These things come over time and whatnot. And it's funny because, these people that are like the strongest or the smartest or the whatever, the highest, performing, whatever it is, it kind of sucks to be them sometimes. It's like, wow, like I did this thing for like 2 hours. Now I'm fried and it's going to take me a week to do it again, or whatever. So it's like, there's a lot of maintenance that goes into these things. If you're not prepared for that, that's a huge component of it.
One thing I've observed, I wonder, because you've worked with probably way more pro athletes than I have, some of the most successful professional athletes are people that try really hard at their sport and the preparation for their sport. But in their downtime, they're the kind of people that just like smoke a blunt and play PlayStation for 8 hours and nothing else bothers them.
Man, this video has just gone completely off the rails. I mean, however interesting this discussion about what pro athletes do in their downtime is, it has nothing to do with smart drugs. And I considered in editing just cutting this bit out, but then you wouldn't see just how bad the video really is in its entirety. Like how irrelevant most of the discussions are to the purported topic at hand.
Yep, that's pretty much my experience.
My man, I love it. Isn't that crazy? Because like a lot of the people that want to be that pro athlete are fucking neurotic people that are like, how many apps should I use for my training and exact numbers, which you and I are nerds. Of course, we're concerned with that. But after you're done training, after you're done work, you got to be able to unplug, because the pro athletes are good because of that. People think pro athletes, very few people meet a pro athlete ever. Very few people on top of that will ever get not intimate with a pro athlete, but know kind of how they live their day. When you realize that pro athletes smash and then they chill like crazy.
Don't forget the nootropics.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, my wife and I had one of my pro athletes staying at our house for a couple of days because he had an event, and he was on that PlayStation the whole, like he would go, killing it, like, you know, at practice or the training session, come back, eat, and then just like
that's it. Yeah.
It's like, but that's what they have the capacity to do. It's so costly because they have the capacity to actually use it.
Sure. Damn, that's some deep shit. Folks, if you like this discussion, we have a member section, which for a nominal amount of money, we get a humongous, unfiltered, unedited time with Mr. Jake Benson.
Wait, you mean to tell me that this whole time we've been watching the edited version of the interview with Jake? And the quality was that poor? Okay, I don't think anyone's going to be buying the unedited version at that rate.
To talk to him about all things brain health and cognitive capacity and restoration. So yeah, like click on the member section.
Don't worry, I won't.
And there's tons of other videos and tons of other good stuff. It costs a little bit of money, but remember, my butlers need to be paid every month.
Forget Mike's video. Here's a better way to hack your brain. It's really simple. How about this? Don't megadose anabolic androgenic steroids like Mike Israetel. Like, if you're really interested in being as smart as possible, then it's a very bad idea to follow in Mike's footsteps. Every great intellectual contribution in human history has been made by people within the physiological range of testosterone. And based on current evidence, there's no good reason to think that raising yourself way above the physiological range would make you any smarter. More the contrary, juicing has been shown to make you dumber, and I can support that claim with some scientific evidence. Heck, even Mike Israetel himself admits that megadosing gear has made him dumber.
Steroids do reliably make you dumber, by the way.
Yeah. Folks, Mike Israetel's video, Top Nootropics for Boosting Your Brain Power, Must Try, is absurd. You've got two roided numbnuts making themselves anxious and dumb with their destructive drug stacks, who are then self-medicating their resulting dysfunctionality with even more drugs, and are then passing it all off online as if it's advice that most people can benefit from. It's just clickbait BS with no citations, no social responsibility, and ultimately, no value to the viewer. A terrible video indeed that was rightly blasted in the comments section. Mike got blasted, but to me what's surprising isn't that Mike released a bad video. Like, he does that all the time. What's surprising is that this is the first one that people caught on to. But it's not a first. Sleep's more anabolic than anabolic androgenic steroids.
An hour of extra sleep that brings you from sleeping 2 hours less than you need to 1 less than you need is unreal powerful and comparable to tons of anabolic drugs.
Natural lifters in the general population should probably train more than pharmaceutically enhanced professional bodybuilders.
You should probably train more than the pro bodybuilders you follow.
Those are other things he's argued. Anyway, give it time, people will catch on. If, rather than roided drivel, you want to watch something that's actually good, then check out my video, an analysis of Mike Israetel's decision to juice, where I argue in depth that Mike's personal decision to megadose anabolics is irrational. Thank you for watching. Stay natty, and for some nootropics that actually work, watch more of my stuff. Consider subscribing.